Let's Achieve Change is a podcast by Pamela Grove, Doctor of Physical Therapy, Pain and Movement Specialist of Metanoia Education and Wellness Center. I propose to be that advocacy channel, making you aware, bringing the public more information on health and wellness topics, especially as it pertains to chronic pain and disabilities. I would like to be that voice for those silent sufferers out there who are not able to speak for themselves. If you'd like to know more about Let's Achieve Change, please visit our website at changeachieve.com or pamelagrove.com. If you'd like to be a speaker or you know someone else who wants to be a speaker, also visit the website and leave your email information and we will be in touch with you as soon as possible. Let's Achieve Change will air every 2 to 3 weeks, bringing you various topics on health and wellness and making the public more aware of issues that are not being discussed. We thank you very much for tuning in. Hello. Thank you for joining me today on Let's Achieve Change. I'm Pamela Grove, Doctor of Physical Therapy, Pain and Movement Specialist of Metanoia Education and Wellness Center. Listen, if you want to make some changes, you have tuned into the right podcast. Now listen, don't forget to hit that notification button so that you can subscribe and you won't miss any future episodes on some changes you might want to make. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. We're now in season 3, episode 5. And we've been tackling, patient advocacy and caregivers and all that. But we want to just take a minute to acknowledge today, this month is June Professional Wellness Month. So we're going to try to tie in together 2 speakers. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But let me just talk a little bit more about patient advocacy. The studies are showing that there are some reasons why healthcare workers are maybe not being as aggressive in the area of patient advocacy. And the 4 that I saw cited were institutional barriers, insufficient support system, lack of knowledge, and a fear of conflict or negative consequences. So let me just touch on those just a little bit, okay? So institutional barriers, you might see things like, the lack of support of their superiors or their peers or other healthcare professionals. Maybe they just feel as if they have lack of time restraints because of their heavy patient loads and not just enough time to designate for some of the things that would take extra advocacy. And then you look at the insufficient support system. Sometimes the patient loads brings an emotional toll on workers, especially when you're doing it day in and day out and months and years, okay? And then when you look at the lack of knowledge, there's just sometimes not enough education out there that's being provided to the healthcare workers. So they don't even know some of their patients' rights or a lot of the ways they can even advocate, their strategies they can put into place within their own job description. So that needs to be tackled a little bit more. And then when we look at the fear of negative consequences, sometimes healthcare workers just feel like especially nurses, I think, they have the problem of sometimes the fear of challenging the decisions that are being made for patients. And so they sort of back down a little bit. Also, they may fear that they maybe suffer some disciplinary action, or it may even cause them some career setbacks. So they're not aggressive enough in those areas. Okay. So I don't want to take up too much more time with that, but this just gives a little bit more insight into what some of the studies are saying about the lack of maybe patient advocacy among healthcare workers. But we're going to dive into 2 speakers today. I'm going to have to go pretty fast because we got a lot to cover. We're going to have 2 different speakers. So one is Monica, and she's coming from the standpoint of as a healthcare ancillary staff. So she's bringing a lot to the table with that. She's quite informative. But then without even an introduction, we're going to go right into Sue. And Sue is not just a caregiver, but she's also serves in the capacity of advocacy for her husband. And so we'll go right into her episode without even a break in the introduction. So without further ado, we're going to now bring on Monica. So good morning. Today we have Monica. I'm so excited to have her on board today. I've been waiting to get her on. She is going to introduce herself and tell the audience what type of experience she's had in healthcare. And then we'll go from there. Monica?
Good morning. Yes, my name is Monica. I've actually worked in healthcare since I was the age of 18, so a good about 10, 11 years now. I've worked in the health department as well as I've worked in offices with doctors
Okay.
and different providers.
Okay. Okay. So, based on your experience, can you just give us some idea whether there was any inconsistencies or any unfair practices or any frustrations that you saw working in those situations?
Yes and no, but
Okay.
there are some frustrations, I will say. Looking at a perspective from being a healthcare worker in the office, as well as the experience of being a patient as well, you get to see the behind the scenes, what goes on in different offices.
Yes.
So you can understand the frustration from coming from a parent, like a patient's perspective,
Mhm.
as well as from working in the health department and, in healthcare. There is some frustrations in it, behind it.
Okay. Can you cite some examples that you actually seen that are major frustrations or inconsistencies or even some unfair practices that you may have seen?
Yes, for example, medications. Medication refills is the big things that I do get frustrated with
Okay.
as far as coming from being a receptionist in a doctor's office and you
Mhm.
feel for the patients.
Mhm.
They are calling for medication refills and they can't get their medication refills right then and there because either the provider is busy with, patients throughout the day,
Okay.
or also you have the pharmacy as well. The prescriptions will be sent into the pharmacy, and then the pharmacy will tell the patient, we did not receive the prescription from the provider.
Okay.
And when you call I would have to call the pharmacy to confirm that. And I would be told something different and be like, oh, well, we're on back order with the medication, or
Mhm.
we don't have the medication in stock. But that's not what the patient was told. The patient was told that the doctor's office never sent in the prescription.
Okay, I got you. Okay. So, have you seen where it's been more than a couple of days a person didn't get their medication?
I hate to admit this, but yes,
Well, it's time for us to talk about it. Uh,
I do. And I really do hate to admit that. I really do.
well,
But these are people's medications that they need.
exactly.
And if they've already gone a day or two without the medication, and here they are going another day or two without their medication.
Yeah, yeah. And so we can imagine what type of harm they might be experiencing. Has it been anything significant medications like blood pressure medications or pain medications? Any of those type of medications?
Pain medications, blood pressure medications,
Wow.
and sometimes even, their mental health medication,
Wow.
some people are on that. And it's like,
Wow.
this is people's health you're dealing with. You
Yeah,
got to put
yeah,
that serious.
yeah, yeah. So, how did you feel you were able to? What was your part to try to remedy that? How did you feel what you had to do? Did you think you did a good job trying to do what you had to do from your end?
I do. I just, for instance, this morning I had to call the pharmacy and be like, hey, look, we sent the medication just last week. You guys received the prescription because, everything is electronic now. You got to
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah,
everything is electronic now.
yeah,
So it shows that, like on our end, it shows, prescription was sent, pharmacy received it,
hmm
and it's ready to be dispensed. But when the patient goes up there, they're told, oh, no, we don't have it in stock. Your doctor never sent it in.
So we're saying that pretty much you, from your perspective, you think it's a pharmaceutical end. It's not from the doctor's part end. It's from the pharmacy end. That's what you're
I
saying.
would say it's a little bit of both.
Okay, okay, okay.
Because there's times that you would put in from not just previous doctor's office,
hmm
and I would tell them, hey, this patient is due for their prescription. They're running low. And, I've told patients also, don't wait till you're on your last medication
Exactly, exactly.
and to call us, because sometimes it does take a day or two to get
Mm.
to the provider because they are busy with patients all
Yeah,
day.
yeah. The doctor's offices may need to be a little bit more aggressive, informing patients to be more thorough and calling in earlier, since they may not get it right away. You know what I mean? But still, that's definitely a definite issue. I've been to some doctor's offices, and I know I have so many patients. I've been doing this for 44 years. I've had thousands of patients tell me this at this point, and I want you to speak to this. They said that sometimes the office workers are dismissive. Have you seen any co-workers in your situation have been dismissive or not attentive enough to the people, or be a little bit rude to the people who come to the front desk or trying to get things through to the doctor's office if it calls?
I hate to admit it, but yes. And that's one thing I've always been vocal about. I've always been vocal about this is a lot of people nowadays, especially the way everything is now, back then, a lot of people were in it for the care, to take care of people. Now, a lot of people really don't care. They're all in it for the money, really.
Yeah.
And you have doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, all of them that they just dismiss the patient. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's not right,
Yeah.
so they just dismiss them. And then next thing you know, they end up at a different doctor's office.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
doctor is helping them and giving them the care that they need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I want you to be honest, and I'm glad you're being honest. I know it's hard to admit it, but until we start to admit it and we talk about these things, we don't get changes. I think the public needs to be aware that they need to speak up about it. So some of these doctors' offices and these different workers, they show a little bit more compassion. So that's why I say it's time for us to talk about these things, So I don't want you to feel bad. That's not something you've done. You're just speaking to what you have, experienced.
Exactly. And see, like I've worked in the health department with public health. I've worked in, family practices. I've also worked as the receptionist in the emergency room.
Wow.
And that right there had opened up my eyes, because when you work in the emergency room, you don't know what you're coming into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have no idea what's coming through those doors or what the ambulances are bringing in. You just don't know.
Yeah.
And there's people that come in, and I understand there are some people that are drug seeking. They are. And then there's some that are genuinely in pain and really do need the help.
Yeah.
And they get dismissed because the emergency room sees a lot of the pill poppers, drug seekers. So they automatically, they're here just because they want to get drugs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, give them a chance. You don't know what they're really here for.
Exactly. That's another thing I see happening a lot too. So yeah. We need to, I don't know, I guess education, I guess being the biases, I think that's where we have to maybe get people more educated on being able to be more wise in who they turn away. I think that takes a willingness to learn and be more discerning. I think that's something you have to work at. You know what I mean? I don't think it comes natural with everybody, That's what I think. Have you seen a difference with, compare the emergency room versus public health versus private offices in the dismissiveness or the inconsistencies in practices? Have you seen any differences among the three that you can speak to?
I really want to say that there is a difference in them all, but it really just all depends. Because like I said, in the health department, people would get dismissed because, they're just here. They just want help. That's all they want. They just want help. They don't want to get out of there and go to work. They just want the help. They just want everything handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I guess I just was raised differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I know everybody's raised differently. Everybody's hearts are different.
Mm-hmm.
And I wear my heart on my sleeve. I will say that. And I give everybody a chance. And I don't look at people like, that's what they're looking for. No, I give everybody a chance because that's what we're there for. We're there to help.
Exactly.
When you're working in the medical field, you are there to help everybody, no matter their background.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you are one of the ones who are out there helping, because it's good. That's refreshing. And I commend you, because we need more people like you who are the frontline people, because you are the frontline people and you get the brunt of it sometimes. So I commend you. And I want to encourage you to keep being that part, playing that part. So, yeah.
And I will tell you right now, yes, there's days that it gets overwhelming, but I love what I do. I do. You're working with different people. You see different people, your patients. And I will say, since I've been working at this doctor's office, we see all ages we also do OB care. So from the time the mom's pregnant with the baby to the time the baby's born and everything, we see the whole family, really. And it's like they become a part of your family.
Yeah.
So, so I do. I love what I do.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so how about from a personal standpoint? Have you had any type of experiences where you suffered harm because it was neglect or not enough care, or the providers were dismissive to you? Do you have any examples like that on yourself personally?
So as a patient-wise, yes, I have.
Yes. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So I suffer with migraines.
Okay.
I've suffered since I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But the older I got, the worse they had got.
Mm-hmm.
And when there was a doctor's office I went to, no
Mm-hmm.
longer go there anymore, but I would explain to them, look, my head is, I do the log, the journal that I did everything they told me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Could not get my headaches under control. The
Wow.
migraines were getting out of control. Then
Yeah.
it was getting to the point where like I would get spasms and like migraines in the back of my head.
Wow. Yeah.
And I would ask, I would be like, hey, is there anything else you guys can do? These medications aren't working. Can y'all do like anything like a CT of my head or anything? They're like, oh, we don't need to do that. It's just it's migraines. That's all it is. It's just migraines. Just
Mm-hmm.
kept dismissing it, kept
Yeah.
dismissing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And so you
And
found,
so
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I
Sorry.
found a different no, you're okay. I found a different doctor. They did a CT scan to make me feel comfortable. I was like, well, can you make sure it's nothing underlined or anything that we're missing?
Exactly. Exactly. So do you get better service when you went to a different practice, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did.
And that's what I'm trying to get across too to people. If you do not feel you're getting the service you are supposed to be getting, you have the right to seek another provider. You know?
Exactly. You don't have to stick with the same provider. You can leave and find
Mhm.
a different one that
Mhm.
works for you.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm glad that you're open enough to speak to that because I want that word to get out there as well because a lot of people are in that situation, going through that as well. So if you had all the money in the world and all the power in the world, they say, okay, Monica, you're the one. You get to make the changes and you get to set the pace here. What would be some things that you can think of that you would do differently based on what you've seen in your life?
Oh goodness. I've always said if I came across a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
like just all the money in the world, I honestly would open up like a homeless shelter for people. And then I would do something as far as in the healthcare, I would open up a hospital that was open for everybody, no matter your background, your race, your anything.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the hospital, the number one hospital to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I would make sure that we had the best doctors in there that cater to what your needs are and not theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That's a utopia, isn't it?
That is, you know, but that's all we can do is dream about that.
That is a utopia. Anything else you care to share about? You've been very forward and I love your passion about what you do. Anything else you care to share about? Anything you can recommend that can benefit those who are trying to navigate the healthcare system coming from your perspective is? Any suggestions? Other than we talked about the
Right.
medication, but anything else to
Yes,
help them?
when it comes to healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
go in it with passion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go in it just for the money
Mm-hmm.
because it's not everything is about the money,
Mm-hmm.
but just go in it for the passion, for the care, for the love.
Yeah, yeah,
Do,
yeah,
do it with an open heart
yeah.
because at the end of the day, people are coming to you for their help and they're trusting their lives and putting it into your hands.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a part of it too is burnout. I know for myself, I'm very giving as a practitioner, but I know that when I start to get burnout, I feel I have to give less. So I know there's time for me to back away. And I think that's something too that needs to be talked about. I think people need to recognize when they are getting burned out and back away because you're not doing any good to that person. So and we all are human, so we're going to experience burnout it takes a lot to give to people all the time, ongoing. So
It does, yeah.
that's something too that I think people who are in healthcare need to become very well aware of where they are emotionally and spiritually and socially, where they need to take time away. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. How about anything else? I mean, as far as the patients go, do you think there's anything else that you can teach them or tell them that they can help them to navigate the system? Because sometimes they just don't know certain things.
I will say, and this is something I've done,
Mm-hmm.
especially with that as a patient,
Mm-hmm.
when you to ask a doctor or a provider something or they dismiss you and you know that they're dismissing you,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned you tell them, okay, well, then you put it in my chart that you are refusing this service for me.
Wow.
That way it's right there in your chart. And and they say, well, once you say that, their whole perspective is going to change.
Wow. I never heard anybody say that. That's pretty good. I like that.
Yes.
Wow.
I have done that before, and trust me, it works.
Wow. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I like that. You guys, hope people out there hearing that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Monica. Wow, you've been a great blessing today. Anything else you want to say before we close out? If we had to name this chapter and we speak to Monica, what would be your mantra? What would be what says something about you, who you are?
Oh, goodness. I'm not sure. I just know, like I said, I'm very passionate about what I do. I've been doing it for over 10 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen a lot of things within the healthcare. So it's like, oh man, I'm not even sure. But look, anybody needs advice about things, just come to me and I'll talk.
Name it that.
Yeah, I can't. I don't even know. I trust you to name that part for me.
Oh, how about I do it from the heart or something like that?
Oh, yes, that sounds perfect.
That
'Cause
sounds
everything I
perfect.
do, yes, because everything I do does come from the heart.
Okay, that's what I'll name you because that's what I'm feeling. You do it from your heart. Yeah.
I
Okay.
do.
That's a blessing. Okay, girlie. Well, thank you so much for coming on and we'll talk soon. Okay. Be blessed. Okay.
All right. Same to you.
Welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, the most recent one was when he was at the hospital for a UTI. A suspected UTI. They didn't have any beds at the hospital. And so he was in the ER department. We were there for 24 hours.
Wow.
And here's the crazy thing. They wanted to have him stay for 2 more days while the culture was done. And now, most people, they go along with what the doctor suggests to you.
Yeah.
And only because we'd been around this a few times, I said to the doctor, wait a minute, are we only staying here because we're waiting for the culture to develop? And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, we could wait at home for that. And he said, well, if he needs IV antibiotics, some antibiotics have to be given by IV. And I said, well, my doctor already told me that can be done at home. There's no reason for us to stay in the hospital for 3 nights.
Yeah.
Just waiting for a culture to develop.
Wow. How long ago was this?
This was maybe 6 months ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Not during COVID. Was just not.
No.
Okay. All right.
No, if it was during COVID, I'd have been even more upset about the idea of staying in the hospital.
Things were crazy during COVID, so I thought maybe that would be understandable why they maybe have said something outlandish like that. But anyway, so you went home. You forced the issue and you guys went home. So, right? So,
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And the same thing, and that's the only reason that we have been advised by the PCP that they can do IV drugs at home. He's had a lot of UTIs since his accident 3 years ago.
I got you.
And it got to the point where every time it was a suspected UTI, the PCP was saying, go to the ER, go to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
And one time they had to Rob absolutely did not want to go to the ER. And they ended up giving him a sedative in order to get him to the ER.
I'm not laughing at him, but that's like, okay.
It would, yeah. Well, you know, Rob, so you know what I'm talking about. And it was only after that experience that this doctor was like, and after that, we were like, no, he's not going to the ER. He is never going back to the ER unless he's got like a broken leg. We're not going to the ER for a UTI ever, ever, ever again.
Well, we have to qualify this because we're going to have people listening to this. And there's going to be some people who say, I will never go to you. And we can't say that. So let me just backtrack a little bit.
Well, we're talking about just for the UTI thing, which he gets frequently.
Yeah. And I just want to say that you say you've been doing it so long with him that you recognize the symptoms quite frequently. And so, there's people who have UTIs and they have no clue that UTIs can cause total cognition changes and where a person does not even know who they are. And they're just so wet as a noodle that they're falling on the ground.
Oh, absolutely. And that's how Rob left the hospital from his accident. And within 24 hours, we had to rush him to the ER, different hospital. Mm-hmm. He nearly died from sepsis.
Wow. See, that's what I'm saying.
And you had a septic UTI.
you have to hospitalize. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I want to be careful when we say something like that, because people don't understand. They can't read between the lines sometimes. So but anyway, so I'm going to come back to Rob, because Rob, I want to share a little bit more. I don't want to run out of time, a little bit more. You as a caregiver for Rob and some other things you've experienced. But let's talk about your sister a little bit. So what is your capacity with your sister, and how have you had to advocate for her? Let's talk about her a little bit.
My sister got evicted from her apartment, and we were very upset with her. She hadn't gotten a job for some time, and we thought that she was just being lazy. We told her that we would keep her cats, but we would not keep her. And she, in the process of trying to bring the cats over to my house, which she has been to hundreds of times, she got lost, couldn't find. So she kept saying she was depressed, and she left that night to go to a hotel, and she got lost again.
Wow.
And then she was trying to come back to my house, got lost again. So I was like, okay, well, something is seriously wrong.
Exactly.
I guess she's really depressed. So I took her over to the mental health, the psych hospital right near my house to have her assessed.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back and said, she does not need our help. She needs to see a neurologist. And that was the first indication that I had that she's diagnosed now with Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And so that, of course, I mean, so much for tough love. I wasn't about to put her out on the street under that circumstance.
Yeah.
You know, it just changed my view completely of everything that had been going on for the last couple of years. I had no idea.
Yeah.
She's only 64.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something we're going to cover at some point too, because Alzheimer's is something that's not known a whole lot about, and it can start very early on. People can start getting signs in their 40s. So, and that's another misnomer. Yeah. So, wow. So you had to bring her in, and anything particular you had to advocate for her since she's been living with you?
I would not say that I've had to do a whole lot of advocacy for her. She has been easygoing. Unlike most Alzheimer's patients, she's been very easy, and the care has been relatively easy. I don't know that I worry sometimes that I don't know enough about it. I've read a book about it. As soon as I heard about the diagnosis, I read a book about the 36-hour day is what the book was. It kind of explains what the process is. And I'm kind of following along with that. But so far, I'm fortunate that she's physically healthy.
So how long has she, not to interrupt you, but how long has she been living with you?
It's a year and a half.
Okay. So you haven't, so you seem to be pretty much blessed in this instance. Not to say that her diagnosis is not very serious, but you have not had to, even with her, making her appointments or to.
Oh, I do all that.
Okay, so then you are advocating. You are advocating.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, wait a minute, the plan is down quite a bit here. Yeah, so you're navigating all her medical appointments.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes,
you're
absolutely.
You're advocating more than you think you are. Okay.
I'm so sorry. My background is legal. So when I think advocacy, I think that I'm fighting for it. I'm not having to fight anything, but I am definitely having to completely navigate the entirety of her life at this moment.
Right. Because you got to remember, if you were not doing that, where would she be? And where, you know what I'm saying? Where you have no clue of how limiting maybe her services might have been if you were not doing what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she has the inability to plan anything. She can't think out step A to step B. You just have to tell her, okay, we're going to do this now and we're going to do that. And everything is at my suggestion and direction.
Yeah, you're advocating quite a bit. Okay, so
sorry.
No problem. I'm enjoying this. You're funny. I love you anyway. You're funny. I love talking to you anyway. So I'm going to kind of wrap up a little bit. One more question with her though. So has there been any surprise experiences or extraordinary events that you had to deal with that maybe things didn't go as smoothly with some of your coordination of services for her at all that we want to share?
Because she lives with me and because I take care of all of her needs, we haven't had to do a lot of coordination of care. The best thing that I was able to find for her is a day program, 4 days a week. She goes to a program that engages her and with people with the same problem. That was the best thing that I've done for her. And it breaks my heart that it's not 7 days a week because it's very hard for her to be.
And was that a program that was hard to get into and it's very limited in what they offer? Could it be something that if we had all the power in the world, and that's what we would love to have, unless achieve change. But of course, we don't have that. But what would be some of the suggestions? I mean, are we getting what we need to get for her? Other people that may have the same similar problems?
The first thing that I wanted to do was do the senior center. And I was first told that as long as she had a caregiver with her, someone to go with her, that she could participate in the senior center activities, which I thought would have been great. But they refused to accept her in.
Why?
Because she was quote unquote diagnosed. If she had not been diagnosed, it was just forgetful, they would have let her come. So she was shut out of that very quickly, and that was frustrating. And then I happened to hear about this program. It's at a church, and I met with the woman who runs it, and that seemed like it was a great fit. And then in order to go, we had to go and spend a day there together. Donna and I both went for a day and saw what it was like, and it's been great.
Okay. So we see that there's more needs to be done in that area, but yeah.
Finding a place, because I don't know that there are many places that are as good as what this is. My understanding is that there are places where you can send people for a day program, but it's kind of not the quality of activities and all the things that they do where she is. So I feel very, very fortunate.
And it's not coming from your pocket. It's coming out of her.
Oh, well.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, okay. So she has Social Security. It's not cheap. Now it's $80 a day that she goes. So yeah. So that's all of her Social Security. And we have an uncle who is also paying for a couple of days a month for her to go.
That's probably some of the reason why some people don't get something like that. But anyway. Okay, so
and that's the only reason she can do that is because she's living here. Imagine.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go back to your husband because we don't want to run out of time here. So can you express some of the emotions you've experienced just being the caregiver for Rob and some of the hardest experiences you've had dealing with caregiving and stuff?
Caregiving is exhausting, and I guess it depends on the patient, but my husband is extremely demanding. He wants 24/7 attention. So, the hardest thing is trying to keep a sense of my own self.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question. Like, what do you do?
Who I am.
Yeah. What do you do to kind of like keep yourself so that you're not burning yourself out? What do you do?
Yeah. We also have a caregiver that we've hired, and she comes in so that I can go and work. Even though I'm retired, I've now gone back to work for 4 hours a day so that I can have that sanity.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But it's the hardest things about it are it completely changes the relationship.
Yeah.
It goes from it's not nearly the husband and wife relationship as much as it is a caregiver and patient relationship. The caregiving interferes a lot with the relationship, I think.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. So what have you learned or you're still learning other than the fact that that it has changed your life? I mean, what could you suggest to some other caregivers out there who possibly might be going through the same thing or, What
I would say is encourage people to visit. We get very isolated because Rob's not able to get out of the house a whole lot, which is where, of course, Pam, you're coming in and saving our day.
Okay.
But it's important to bring other people in so that you can take a little bit of a breather and
So in other words, not to cut you up, in other words, try to keep that person involved in other social activities as much as possible
Yes.
to add
Yes.
to the day.
And
Yeah.
and take advantage of any offers for respite,
Yeah. Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah.
And it shouldn't always be whether the patient wants to provide that, to
Exactly.
allow that. But at
Exactly.
some point, you have to be able to say, this is what I need.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Have you had to have a chance, because we probably got 5 minutes left, but have you had the chance to really, I don't know how much it will make a difference, but have you had a chance to talk to your husband and or your sister? I don't know whether it's necessary, but to express to them how you feel about your role and anything that you think you might need to say. Well, the reason why I say that is because I find that many times people go on to another world and we never say what we need to say to people. And so I'm just wondering, have you had an opportunity to say some things and that you feel as if you were able to say or want to express to either one of them that you need to do that?
I think that I have, particularly my sister. That's easy with my husband, but my sister and I had a strained relationship for years. And I became resentful because we've been supporting her for years. Again, not realizing that what she had going on. So, yes, I've been able to speak to her, but I don't know at this point how much is
Just taking it in.
retained.
Just taking it in. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you're doing great. I see you often and I think you're doing great. I think you need to continue to provide yourself with some type of outlet though, as much as possible so you don't burn out. I do suggest that be encouraged to continue to do that and don't feel guilty about that. I think that's very important for you. You can't be of any help for anybody else if you're not taking care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? So that's
I think about that all the time.
very important. So if we had to make any changes, we got like 3 minutes. If we had to make any changes as far as advocacy, because I think you remember you were telling me something about one time you were in the hospital and you saw even results on the lab results or something, and it had not been noted by the physician or whoever.
Well,
So what suggestions would you make that if we could make some changes, if you could suggest some changes that would have been improved upon with your husband particularly?
they have social workers at the hospital and stuff, but they don't seem to really do anything other than arrange for I just felt like I was so alone when he was in the hospital. I felt that I had to watch over everything. I was online constantly checking his blood test results and all this stuff. And I didn't feel like anybody was really paying attention to what was going on. And as it turned out, he ended up being released from the hospital as his white blood count was going up.
Wow.
And ended up back in the hospital less than 24 hours later in severe septic shock.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, that's really scary.
Yeah.
But I don't know what avenues are available to fix that. I just sit there and think, I have a law degree and I was overwhelmed by how much I had to try and learn and understand. And all I could think was, what if I were just a high school graduate with no background in this stuff? How would I ever have navigated this?
Let's go even further. Someone who doesn't even have a high school education.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, and no medical background at all. So it's just that I think is like you're saying. I just think that people either they just don't take the time, or they assume that you know things, or they don't assume that's not their position to say things. I just think there's so many of all those things, and it's all this making a mess of everything.
And even the sense that I don't need to know.
Exactly.
Was kind of what I got too. Like, don't you worry about this. We got it. And it's like, no, I'm not sure you do.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah. And the final proof was we're racing to save his life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're going to sum it up with this. I ask people, and sometimes this question is kind of morbid, but if you had to put an epithet out there over your name, over Sue, and to express your philosophy on your life experiences as an advocate or as a caregiver or any of this that you've gone through over the last 10 years or so, what would you say? And somebody read that, they would say, yeah, that sounds like Sue. Because this is going to be your chapter. So what would you say?
I think that my mantra really is do unto others as you would have others do to you, because that's what keeps me going. Is if I were in this situation, I sure as heck would want somebody who's caring for me like I'm caring for my husband and my sister.
I like that. That would be your chapter. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That would be yours.
Yep.
Anything else you want to say before we sign off, Miss Lovely Lady?
No. Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome. You're quite welcome. Okay. Be blessed and continue to take care of yourself. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So in summary, first of all, thank you, Monica. Thank you, Sue. You guys were awesome. I think today we've had two great examples of how caring is essential when we're dealing with patients, and whether we are healthcare professionals, caregivers, or serving as patient advocates. I just wanted to sum up and say, we must try to promote some more educational, supportive environments for healthcare workers to make sure they are educated with some of the ways they can become better advocates, and also to provide that education so that they feel supported and they don't feel intimidated, or that they're going to have maybe some type of retaliation occur. And most of all, I want to also say too, it's very important, because this is Professional Wellness Month, that we continue to share our hearts and be caring. But most of all, we got to also make sure that we are well. It's hard for us to take care of others if we're not well ourselves. Please continue to listen as we dive into more on the upcoming weeks on hidden harms, as they lead to many silent sufferers out there. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in today at Let's Achieve Change. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You will find out more about Metanoia Education and Wellness Center on our website at changeachieve.com. We welcome your questions and your feedback. Please feel free to fill out the form on the website, and we will contact you directly. I pray that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. Remember, it's all about the change. Thank you.